skeptic about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Can you explain your concern?
Yeah, so I travel around and I do talks like this. I do a lot in universities. And inevitably in the university context, there are a number of students who want to ask me about Bitcoin. And I always ask them, has anybody in this room ever bought something with Bitcoin? Not bought Bitcoin, bought something using Bitcoin as a currency. I mean, a sandwich, a computer, a book, anything? Anybody ever bought anything using Bitcoin as a currency? No. I've never met somebody who's bought something using Bitcoin as a currency. So I always ask, what problem is this trying to solve? Well, first I heard, well, it's an inflation hedge. Well, then when we had this big inflation spike, I said, darn it, we're going to make these Bitcoin guys feel like they were right. But then it turned out Bitcoin was a terrible inflation hedge. When we raised interest rates, Bitcoin got crushed. It's just another risky asset. So if you want to spend your money buying Beanie Babies or Pez dispensers or Bitcoin, knock yourself out, okay? But it's now been 10 plus years and nobody has been able to articulate any actual utility in the real world other than an article of speculation. I'm not opposed to Beanie Babies. I'm not opposed to Pez dispensers. I am opposed to Americans taking their hard-earned money and being duped into investing in something and not realizing they're buying a Beanie Baby, thinking they're buying something else. I'll give you one little example. I've used this before. I said my wife is from the Philippines. One time we went to visit her family in the Philippines. We landed at customs at LAX. I was going through customs. I was tired. The customs officer said, what do you do for a living? And I said, I work at the Federal Reserve. And he said, oh, do you know about Bitcoin? And I said, I know something. And he said, my good buddy just took out a home equity loan to buy Bitcoin. Should I do that? And I said, you know, I'm not supposed to give investment advice, but do not do that unless you want to risk losing your home. So that's why I'm concerned about it.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And don't forget to join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And guys, we have the Fed speaking about Bitcoin. Now guys, we know every time Bitcoin pumped, it was the Fed behind it. And the central banks are not going to allow a currency to rise. None of these cryptos to rise. The reason why is because Bitcoin and cryptos are all for the fourth industrial revolution, where the robots, algorithms, and drones take the economy over, pay each other with crypto, and the sheep go inside the metaverse. And you won't hear none of the Fed talk about the fourth industrial revolution. And you're definitely not going to hear it from Janet Yellen. And Janet Yellen talks about the collapse of SVB, which they tried to blame crypto for. And we know the Fed was behind it. Bad paper, these high interest rates, printing all this money, letting people go 0% for over 10 years. And guys, we're talking about the globe. And now rates are as high as they've ever been on this type of debt. The collapse is near. And we know the NWO are the master magicians. They're not going to tell you, hey, I took your money. They're going to have you looking one way while they're running the money in the back door. And it's very easy because they keep the sheep distracted on things that don't matter. And we heard it from the FDIC right out their own mouth how they were planning to do it. And they've been planning this for over 10 years. And we know now it's time for them to put the plan into effect. And all they need is that one crisis to do things they never would have been able to do. And the technology is definitely ready behind the curtain. And then we have Basel III. We know the small and medium-sized banks are going to be destroyed. And we know once the small and medium-sized banks are destroyed, small businesses are destroyed, and small businesses are the backbone of the American economy. So that means mass layoffs. And guys, we see these tech companies laying off, but remember, these tech companies don't have a lot of employees anyway. And the fourth industrial revolution, you're going to have 10 employees in a billion-dollar company. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. Because he knows when it comes to the NWO, It's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
That all of the regulators and so many people were involved in after the failure of Silicon Valley Bank to try and save this country from experiencing a bank run that could have actually crippled our banking system. Do you recall the work that went into that? 24 hours a day for 3 days so that when we woke up on Monday morning, we were safe rather than we were going to get back to what happened back in 2008. You remember that?
I will never forget it. I was involved in it, and we did everything we could to put together a package of measures that would stop what could have become a run on the banking system, to the huge detriment of our economy and to hardworking Americans and businesses.
And again, if there had been adequate capital at Silicon Valley Bank, we could have avoided what took place in the way that it did.
Well, there was an issue with their management of interest rate risk, which had produced mark-to-market losses on long duration assets that they held. And that was coupled with very heavy reliance on uninsured deposits that were concentrated among a group of tech firms that were active on social media. We saw a run that was the largest and fastest of anything anyone has ever witnessed in this country.
Would you agree with the director that peer-to-peer payment activity or non-bank peer-to-peer payments represent financial stability risks to the financial system overall? Zelle, Venmo, you think peer-to-peer payment systems present a financial stability risk to the system?
I don't believe that's something that FSOC has highlighted.
But let's just talk about Basel III Endgame for a moment. No cost-benefit analysis, not much data to support it. Small businesses across the country will suffer from it because there'll be less lending taking place. Nobody can argue that. Some people say it could be as much as 20% from the big banks. And then all kinds of pressure is put on the smaller banks where they will have, instead of 20 small businesses coming to them, they'll have 100 because there's less funding and capital available from the large banks. Yet some people argue those very basic, simple, fundamental points. So I ask you on Basel III. I mean, are you concerned about the feedback, the overwhelming feedback regarding the problems and potential risk to our economy that the Basel III Endgame proposal will cause?
So the banking agencies put out this proposal. This is not something that I've been involved with, and they've received many comments and expressions of concern along the lines that you've just indicated, and it's their job under the APA to review those comments and to respond appropriately. My understanding is that they believe that changes in some of the proposals are going to be appropriate and necessary to address the commenters. Working closely with the banks they supervise to discuss ways to manage and work with borrowers who have problems. They're, in some cases, working to make sure that loan loss reserves are built up to cover losses, that dividend policies are appropriate, that liquidity is adequate. So the higher interest rate environment, and in some cases, particularly the case of office building, shifts in work patterns due to the pandemic, coupled with many commercial real estate loans coming due and needing to be refinanced in a context where vacancy rates in some cities are quite high, is going to put a lot of stress on the owners of these properties. And so the banking agencies are very focused in helping the banks manage through these situations.
So you're concerned but not distressed. Is that?
Yes, I mean, I'm concerned. I believe it's manageable, although there may be some institutions that are quite stressed by this problem. Council is focused on digital assets and related risks, such as from runs on crypto asset platforms and stablecoins, potential vulnerabilities from crypto asset price volatility, and the proliferation of platforms acting outside of or out of compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Applicable rules and regulations should be enforced, and Congress should pass legislation to provide for the regulation of stablecoins and of the spot market for crypto assets that are not securities. We look forward to continuing to engage with Congress on this. With this overview, I look forward to taking your questions on these. And
going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting at more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told told his members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will. During that auction that we saw a little bit before, the attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy. And you know, when the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books, It's Time to Re-Educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.